and we can learn so much from him with his industry experience and also his research work. I welcome you, Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Pushpa. This is wonderful. I'm so glad. I dropped in last week. It's just a few seconds, but I thought we'll do it properly this week. And Pushpa, you staying with us for a little while?
Just for a while, Prof. Just for a while, then I will leave.
Yeah. That is wonderful. Anyway, thanks for coming so early. This is amazing. Like, I just want to share a screen to say what we miss in this unit. I'll just show you. I just want to check to make sure that we're sharing the right screen here. So we just move forward.
Prof, can I interrupt? I think your volume is a bit low.
That's better. Okay. So I think we've got better volume now. And screen 1, screen 2, screen 3. Yes. Okay. So this is what excites us the most. And I'm here to present today about the assessment task, the 30% assessment task. And we have spent a lot of time in the last few years trying to enrich your experience in this unit through the assessment task. There's always going to be an exam element. There's some elements, you know, you're going through the textbook, the chapters, you got tutorials. There's always various elements of every unit. But one thing that we've tried to be innovative on is the assessment task. And I'm sorry, we are doing this online, but it doesn't mean we cannot continue to be innovative on the assessment task. And that's what we're about today. And as you can see, lots of happy experiences from the past. And we do hope to see you this year in person when the campus reopens. We're not sure when that will occur, but that's a dream of ours to actually meet you all in person this year. And that we're holding to that. Let's have a look and go back to the start of these slides. As you know from the video that I have presented and you have watched, I will come in formally in week 7 and week 8. We're going to talk about chapter 12, chapter 19, which is really the balanced scorecard. Looking at the first 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, it is very, very clear that you are learning about cost concepts. You are learning about how to attach costs to various things you see in an organization. Wow. Well, the assessment task and what I will present in week 7 and week 8 is a departure from that to focus more on the activities of the organization that contribute to its success. In the early part of this unit, you are spending more time to understand, okay, how do we start to attach costs to the resources of the organization? And the meaning of that is if we can attach costs to resources of the organization, then we can better plan, like flexible budgeting this week. We can better value inventory, which is needed for profit and loss accounts. And so we can do all of those accounting things. Wow. So how is the assessment task and the balanced scorecard and what we're covering in week 7, week 8 and onwards different? Well, what we start to focus on middle of this semester is how are the resources or the activities connected? How are they connected together to help the organization to optimize its strategy, to make real its strategy? So how do we connect people in the organization to make its strategy work? So we're really focusing a lot on the management of the resources rather than just attaching monetary values to the resources, which is what you're learning in the early weeks of this unit. Ah, wow. Okay. So let's go to the beginning. Now, I just want to, I've been talking for a little bit now. I just want to pause for a moment and can you all put your thumbs up? I want to know if everyone's alive this morning, because that's the best way to be when you're learning something. Have we all got our thumbs up? I love it. All right. If you want to show your video for 1 minute, that's fine too. You can always use virtual screen so no one sees behind you. But please, in the early stages, I'm happy if you don't want to show your video, that's fine. But there will be a few tasks that we're going to do this morning where I'd like you to show your video if you want to participate. And that's always great. It's always a great thing to do. Just a hint, when you are going for job applications in the future, they are going to expect how you carry yourself on the screen. You know, yes. Okay, do you have energy on the screen? And so we'll help prepare you for that as we go through this semester and also in other units this year. Okay, the operational flow of the assessment. In week 4, by week 4, we would have created student groups, and by week 5 and 6, you would have watched the factory audit videos, which will become the main part of the assignment that you're working on. And these are real factory audits that I undertook in China before I moved to Malaysia 3 years ago. By week 7 and 8, where I come in again and present chapter 12 and 19, we will get into a little bit more detail about what you need to do in the report and much more specifics. And by week 9, we're going to finalize the report, prepare slides, and rehearse the presentation. Rehearsal is a big thing, ladies and gentlemen. And in week 10, we have you to submit the written report and the presentation. So as I'm saying today, in the introduction, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the parts of the report. How am I coming through there, Pushpa? All good?
All good, Prof.
All good. Excellent. Wonderful. So, rules of engagement. I'm going to cover today about how we're going to assess the report, the scope, and give you some balanced scorecard assignment examples. I'll actually show you some factory videos that will lead you to the material that you'll need to watch as part of doing the report. Then I'll briefly talk about how you can maximize your effectiveness as a presenter, because ultimately it's one thing to be able to produce a report. It's another thing to be able to convey the meaning, the essence, the spirit of the report that you have completed in person or over video. Either way, it's an important task that all organizations are requiring of knowledge workers around the world. Okay. All right. So as you know, there's a 15% on the report side. And I want to go through each of the different elements. And by going through now, and you've watched the video, so you know what they are. There's a business comparison table, and I'll show you a basic one of what that looks like. There is a customer preference map, and then a strategy map. Then there's measurement details and explanation of the linkages, references. As you know here, it's not about a word limit, it's about a page limit. Actually, when you think about it, this is a real formatting limit that we are placing on you. So we're actually forcing you to put more time and energy into making the best use of each page that you have to deliver. You have 6 pages. What are you going to put on those 6 pages to maximize the effectiveness of your report in communicating your solution to the problem? And this is a big thing that Big 4 firms are asking for. Not that you can just do data analytics, that is create a report, but your ability to be able to communicate. And so your ability to communicate a report really depends on how you put the report together. Wow. So more words doesn't mean a better report. Clarity and completeness is what is more required. As you know here, these rubrics, notice that on the left-hand side, you have the business comparison overview, customer preference map, strategy, objectives. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. O'Connor, you're given a grade for each page. Yes, we are. Are all pages difficult? No, some pages are easier than others. And you'll find as we go through over the next 40 minutes, some pages are going to be easy for all of you to do. I think 1 and 2 will probably be the most easiest parts. 3 would probably be the most difficult. 4 would be a little bit less. If you do 3 very well, that will help you do 4 and 5 very well. So the difficulty will be in 3, and then 4 and 5 will be much easier once you get over that saddle of 3. It's like climbing a mountain. So, 1 and 2, you've got little hills going up, but 3 is going to be the steepest part of your climb. And 4 and 5, you're coming down a little bit. Getting over that peak is at number 3. And then number 6 is more your reflection on the report, and there's 1 page for that. Wow. So let's go into the video presentation side of things. Well, there's a video length of 12.5 minutes, and you're probably thinking, why 12.5 minutes? Well, we want you to be very, very specific. Every word is golden when you have limited time. Most presenters go over time. One of the big contributors to going over time, let me share you a secret, and it's when you don't rehearse, and it's when you're not sure what you need to present. Wow. How do you get sure? More surety? You present more, you rehearse. It's amazing. You can cut 20% off your time when you practice. So really, you may set out to, as a group, put together a 15-minute presentation, but through rehearsal and through tweaking and changing a few things, you bring it back to 12.5 minutes. Now, that includes a 2.5 minute for personal reflection per group. Now, what is that? Well, this is where you can speak individually, partly as a group. For those 2.5 minutes, reflecting on what you learned. What is your big learning in going through this task? And it's a personal reflection about what you learned, not what Dr. Pushpa and I expect you to learn. Okay. Therefore, some of you may learn things that others don't learn, or some of you may have felt that, wow, this is the learning I felt was on the video side, whereas another group may feel that the learning was on putting together one element of the report, and how did that sharpen your mind in thinking about how business operates. Okay, so that 2.5 minutes is really a personal reflection, but the 10 minutes is the written report. And as a group, I will show you some examples in this session this morning of presentations made in the past. So give you an idea, warm you up, get a feeling that, okay, this has been done before. This is not the first time that we are flying with this aeroplane. Okay. So, and then here's a rubric used for the presentations. Okay. Can we have a thumbs up, everyone? Have a thumbs up. Are we all with us? Are you all with us today? Okay, this is great. Because what I'm going to do now is start to take you through some elements of the report, starting with page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5. And this overlaps just a little bit with what we're covering in chapter 12. So you can, if you want more time, have more time, you can skip to chapter 12 and look through some of the elements I'm covering today. When we come back in chapter 7, in week 7, we will spend a little bit more time in detail on chapter 12. I want to cover 3 items that really focus on page 1, page 2, page 3. Let me repeat. Page 1, strategic alignment framework, which is customer preference map. Page 2, systems thinking. And page 3, measurement. Yes, measurement. It really is. And remember, the peak of the mountain is probably in the area of systems thinking and trying to think about what does the strategy map of an organization look like. But let's start with easy parts first, shall we? Page 1, I will get to that. I will show you a brief example of page 1 where we do a business comparison. Okay, we are really looking at how are resources used in the organization to maximize an organization strategy? How are they put together? Remember last week, Dr. Pushbar was talking about, what type of costs in the organization are fixed? What type of costs are variable? Is labor fixed? Is labor variable? Some elements of labor are fixed, some elements of labor are variable. And so last week, you were thinking about labor in terms of a resource, in terms of how do we cost that resource? This week, when we look at the balanced scorecard, we are thinking of labor as a resource to create value. How can we use those resources in the learning and growth section, which is right at the bottom here, to help energize the business processes where something gets made, where a service gets delivered, and then that flows through to value to the customer who pays for the product or pays for the service. And we can talk about products being produced, or we can talk about services being produced. It is the same idea. We start with resources, that is labor, capital, and materials. Remember last week you were attaching cost to materials, you're attaching overhead costs to buildings and fixtures and fittings. This week, we are thinking about how do we put the labor, the materials, the building together in the form of processes to create value for the customer. So this is a big departure from what you're doing in this early stage. Now remember, I want to reassure you, the reason why we are presenting this so early in the semester is to help get your mind ready for the 30% assessment task. So that's why we don't want to suddenly shock you in week 7 with these ideas and concepts and say, you've got 3 weeks to submit your assessment, okay? We want to start your thinking that there's not only one way of thinking about an organization, like an accountant would think about an organization and say, okay, what can we put, how much does it cost to make this pen? How much does it cost to make this smartphone? Okay, there's many other ways of looking at the organization. So today we're looking at the organization is we're thinking about this product and thinking about, okay, how can we make the best product for the market that we are selling to? Then we have to combine materials. We have to combine labor that put these materials together. And yes, today I'll actually show you a smartphone getting put together. Okay, all right. So just, I want you to be able to have that flexibility of shifting from last week, how do we attach costs to resources like labor, materials, overhead? Right. This week, how do we create a value in terms of producing a service or creating a product? That's the big difference. So just keep those two thoughts in mind as we go through. Now, we have good people, we can put the processes together, then we're creating value to the customer, and finally, we are then get profit, we get rewarded for creating a good service, for creating great products. That's what we want to do. Unfortunately, if we just follow the accountant's path, then we're going to focus most of our attention at the top, right? Like, if we're not making a profit, we shouldn't be in business. We shouldn't continue on. Well, tell that to Elon Musk when he had 2-3 rockets fail on him when he first started SpaceX 10, 15 years ago. All right. Anyone would have said, look, you're not making a profit here. What are you doing? All right. But he had a different perspective on what he is doing. And now you see the fruits of his focus. All right. He just didn't have an accounting perspective on his business. But most accountants, Wall Street, stock markets, they put a lot of the attention on the financial. But if you are a businessman and you are trying to create value in the organization, that is where you do not have control. Even the customer, you have limited control, because the customer decides at the end of the day whether they buy your product, whether they buy your service. You can brainwash the customer through lots of marketing, through lots of influencer marketing, social media, Instagram, Facebook, TV, lots of different ways of marketing to convince the customer to buy your product. Then you have a little bit of control, but that's through creating a brand, which is your promise. You have most control over the bottom part, that is the people, that is the buildings that you buy, that is the overhead, that is the fixtures and fittings, that is all the processes that you put together to make the product or to produce the service. And so the big idea or the big perspective when we look at the organization from a balanced scorecard, from a strategy perspective, is to really focus on the bottom two elements, because that's where you have control. You do not have control, full control over the customer, and you have very little control over the financial reports. They come after you have made decisions about who you're going to hire, which buildings are you going to rent out or build, which materials are you going to source, etc. That's a big idea from this diagram. All right, let's start with page 2 of your report. This is what we mean by a customer preference map. I'm just going to, this is a cup. I'm just going to take a water. This is an example taken out chapter 12. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to briefly introduce it to you. Then I'm going to show you 2 organizations and then ask you to make a customer preference map. Very, very quickly. We're going to go very, very fast on this. Here are 2 companies, and you can see that Chipset has been ranked on the right side for price, on the right side for scalability, on the right side for customer service, but on the left side for power and speed, customer chip design. Visilog has been ranked on the left side for price, scalability, customer service, on the right side for power and speed and chip design. What does it mean, right side, left side? When we're talking about a customer preference map, what we are doing is ranking the attributes that convince the product customer to buy your product. Ah, wow. So when we say that chipset has a higher rating on price than Visilog, it doesn't mean that chipset has a higher price. It means that customers come to chipset because chipset has a better price offering. Ah, two different things. A higher rating on a customer preference map doesn't mean you have a higher price. It means that customers buy your product because you have a better price. Ah, if a higher rating on power and speed means that customers buy your product because you have better power and speed. Ah, so that's what we mean by a customer preference map. Why do we do this? Because ultimately your strategy is finally judged by the customers who buy your product or buy your service. Let me repeat, ultimately, the strategy, the success of your strategy is decided by your customer because they buy your product. If they don't buy your product, then no matter what strategy you have, you cannot say it's successful. Ah, wow. All right, so let's have a look. Here's an example. This is page one. This is a page one example of two hoverboard manufacturers. You know, the hoverboards where you can freely float on two wheels. I've done it. It takes a lot of practice. And so here's an example of two companies, Freeman and Wellon. They are two companies, two manufacturers in China. They are both making hoverboards, but one is different from the other. And just on this, we can talk about a challenge. Wellon has a marketing challenge. Freeman has how to perfectly match the motor with the main board in the hoverboard. But there's many different rows that you can put here to contrast two companies. I'm not expecting that you use all of these exact rows in your page one of a business comparison. You can put much more information in your page one than what I've got here. But there's an example here that a positive for Freeman is there's a 4% turnover rate. That's a positive. Why? Because turnover in China can be 10, 15, 20% in certain processes. Wow. The problem from Wellon, they have their own design model. They have a superior post-sales service, but on a negative, they have no documentation or QC. Whereas Freeman, their negative, lack of product diversity. So we can think about differences between two businesses, but let me not just show you an example like this. I want to show you what these two companies look like. Okay. Can you all see that? Do we have thumbs up? Can you all see those videos in front? Are you all with us here? Okay, this is exciting stuff. Why? Because these are real businesses and this excites me. And I've been to over 30, I think 36 now. I've lost count literally of factories in China I did over about a 3-year period leading up to 2019. I even go back to China now. Not in the past 12 months because the borders are closed, but up until 2019, I was visiting factories in China, flying back from Malaysia to Hong Kong, going to China, visiting factories just like these. So the factory at the top, what you notice is, first of all, what product are they making? They're making hoverboards. Okay, so these are those low wheel skates. You stand on them, 2 wheels on each side. You go backwards and forwards, sideways, whatever you like, without any handles, controls, anything, just based on your gravity, leaning forward, leaning backwards, etc. What you've noticed here is a comparison of those two companies of the incoming materials inspection. In the top, they are putting those 20 cells together to make the 4.4 amp hour battery module that goes into the hoverboard. In the bottom one, that's well on, I'm discussing with the production manager what that blue, that is the blue package, the exact same package that the top company is making of those 20 batteries. And it says, you notice here, it says Samsung on top, right? See, it says Samsung. Notice it's 4.4 amp hours. What does that mean? That's how powerful the battery pack is. Your phone, everyone, your phone, most of you have something like a 400, you're going to have something that's about 1/6 the size of this battery pack in your phone, running your phone, or less. Okay, so these are very strong battery packs, and they will last and move on the hoverboard for hours on end. Then you charge them up overnight, etc. But notice the two big differences between these companies is the one at the bottom, they are bringing this battery pack in from outside. And so the question is, what about the quality? The quality, which one do you think has a much more stringent quality control over that part of the process? I want you to put your thumbs up if you think it's the top one. Put your hand up if you think it is the bottom one. Okay, hands for the bottom. Hands for the bottom. Okay, thumbs for the top one. Can you show now? Which one do you think is better? Which one would you buy from? If you were a customer now, which one would you buy from? Some of your thumbs, some of your hands. You're the customer. There's no correct answer. All right. If I say, which one would you buy from? You could buy from both of them. And as a customer, maybe you want to buy from one of them because it has a cheaper price. Maybe you buy from one of them because it has a higher quality. Ah, wow. I'm not showing these two to say that, oh, one you should buy from and one you should not buy from. I'm just showing you the differences between two companies. Same product, but differences in how the processes are operated. Ah, wow. Let me give you another example. Same companies. Now we are making the hoverboards. I love hoverboards. Okay. Notice what I'm doing now is I'm taking you through the customer preference map. In the past, when we teach management accounting, we would give you a case study on paper to read and then ask you to do a customer preference map. I'm not doing that today because I believe that good teaching is about showing you real businesses and let you draw conclusions by what you see rather than what you read on paper. Okay, so we're doing a customer preference map now. Now, how many, remember, thumbs up for the top one and hands up for the bottom one. What does that mean? If you think you'd want to buy from one factory versus another, right? Remember, hands up for the bottom one, thumbs up for the top one if you want to purchase. Now, there's no right or wrong answer. I just want to show that everyone has a different preference. Customers have different preferences. On the day that I visited the bottom one, they were making 600 hoverboards for a French customer, right? Okay, now let's have a look. These are the same two companies again. The company at the top, they were the first to get the UC standard to import hoverboards into the USA because in 2016, USA banned hoverboards, like banned, you cannot ship. And so the company at the top was the first, this is Freeman, they were the first to ship in the US because they got the UL standard. The UL standard is a particular quality control standard over the processes in the organization to make sure that the hoverboard is made correctly and it will not catch fire. Look at the factory at the bottom. That's what we call a workshop. They're making the exact same product, and that worker in the bottom knows the 100 different steps that are needed to make that hoverboard. He knows what to do on the first step, the second step, the 12th step, the 50th step, the 70th step. The one at the top, notice each worker is doing about 3 steps, and that's all. So when we train a worker for the top factory, all we have to do is train a worker to do 3 things. If we bring in a worker for the bottom factory, that worker has to be trained to do 100 things. Notice the difference. The processes are different. The product is the same. Ah, wow. That's amazing. I thought all factories are the same. No, they're not all the same. Okay, the products might be the same, but the factories might be different. Ah, wow. So what we can do now, and now you can see what the hoverboard is starting to look like, right? And as you can see here, they're testing the hoverboard. As you see, here's the quality control. In the bottom, there's our quality control guy in the bottom. Notice he is definitely a quality control guy, all right? He's really, really testing that out. The one at the top, he's really checking out the quality. He's going through, he's going to go up and down. He's doing all the different parts that are needed to test the quality. Of course, the quality control in the bottom factory, yes, he's doing all the things, but there's no designated area to test all the different steps of quality control. As you can see, you notice. So could we do a customer preference map? And what I want to ask you to do now is to do a brief, I want you to draw a customer preference map now on any one of price, customer service, quality, or power. You do not have to use all of those attributes. I'm going to have a short break now. I'm not going to go away, but I want you now to think about which of these, Freeman versus Wellham. Remember, the top one is Freeman, the bottom one is Wellham, all right, F and W. Which one would be higher on price? Which one would have a higher attribute? Let's maybe do quality, okay? And which one do you think could work on scalability? Let's just work on price, scalability, and quality, because I just want you to make a judgment based on what you have seen, rather than making up stuff that you haven't seen, right? So could you do that now? And I think it's very, very important that every one of you get a pen and a paper, and you can do that now. And what we're going to do very, very quickly is put you in the groups for 3 minutes so you could actually say something to your other classmates this morning. We have 86 in this part. I'm happy. We're just going to create 10 breakout rooms or 12. It really doesn't matter. 15, it's fine. I want you to get to know some of the others, and you'll assign automatically to those rooms. And what does that mean? Well, I just want you to have a conversation with someone else on agreement, disagreement, on what you've just seen, and ranking on price, quality, scalability. And maybe there's something else you saw that I'm not talking about. And how long are you going to have? I'm going to give you 3 minutes. no more. No, we'll make it less. 120 seconds. That is 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, the breakout room will be closed. Okay. This is a simple task, but I want you to just interact with someone else on this task. You ready? 1, 2, 3. 3 minutes. Oh, I've just given you 1 minute extra. All breakout rooms will close in 50 seconds. So we're all back again. Welcome back, everyone. So now we can think about thumbs up. Was that useful or wasting time? I want you to talk to others. It's really important you have interaction. Why? Because in 1 or 2 weeks time, you'll be in a group. So you'll have to do it anyway. So it's good to meet people during this process. All right. So where are we going to put price? So we've got F for Freeman, W for Welland, price. So remember, the question is, why would you buy from Welland, Freeman? Would Welland be higher on price than Freeman or lower? Now, I'm not talking about the price, why you would go to Welland. Would you go to Welland because you want to save money, or would you go to Freeman because you want to save money, feeling that it's a better priced product? Have you thought about that? Anyone? Okay, we're all warming up here. So what we would do is maybe we put Welland here. Let me just, I hope it works. Wait a minute. Okay, and then Freeman here. If we did that, that means customers that buy in Welland are rating Welland very, very, very high on the reason why they buy from Welland. If they rate Freeman at 2 on price, that means they're not using price as the reason why they are buying from Freeman. Okay, maybe we think about scalability. Which one do you think is more scalable? All right, so I'm going to ask for a show of hands. There's a hand. Okay, a show of hands if you think you want to buy from Freeman, because in the future you want to order 10,000 hoverboards because your brand is going so well in Europe and USA. So which one would you lean towards in terms of purchasing from scalability? Put your hand up if you think that would be Freeman. Put your thumbs up if you think it's Welland. Okay, lots of hands going up. All right, so now you're starting to see that, okay, scalability, Freeman, we would put here, and then Welland. Why? Well, you saw the production yourself. You don't need me to tell you that it'll be easier for them to do an order of 2,000, 5,000 hoverboards with a lead time of 2-3 weeks. With Welland, it's going to take forever for one person to make 2,000 hoverboards. All right. And then quality, which one do you think, if I really cared about quality, would I purchase from Freeman or Welland? So hands up for Freeman and thumbs up for Welland. Okay, you got hands up. All right. So then you want to go Freeman for quality and Welland. So there you go. That's kind of like your page 2. Like, so your customer preference map is going to be something like this, and then Freeman is going to be something like this. Okay. All right. So page 2 of your report. Now, let me just make a few notes. 1, okay. These are not the only attributes, okay? Are they the only attributes for why customers buy? No, there's many attributes for why customers buy, all right? So there may be other things that you can add in. Number 2, make very, very clear that you label everything. You have to label, like we have a nice label for the heading. The attribute rating, make sure that's very, very clear here. Make sure the labeling here is very, very clear. Make sure the labeling here is very, very clear. Everything has to be clear, clear, clear. And this is how you're going to maximize your marks on this page. Okay, so you're going to have to get the attributes right, make very, very clear what the attributes are. We're looking for 3, 4, 5 attributes for why customers would buy from one and not the other. Okay, so let's keep going on here. So remember, that's the little hill, right? So now we've got to go up to the top mountain, all right? And it's 5 minutes to 9. So what we're going to do before we climb the mountain, we need to catch our breath, right? Because the next climb is going to be very, very steep, very, very steep. So can you just have a break for 5 minutes? and we'll come back at, it's 8:54. Let's come back at 9 o'clock. And so then we'll get into how do we climb the highest part of your report. Is that sound like a good plan? See you in 6 minutes, 5 minutes now, 9 o'clock. Okay. I'll still be here, so don't worry. And you can ask me anything, please. Use the chat room. Ask any questions you like, please. We're here to help. I even have breakfast, just like everyone else. Let's have a look. Okay, we're going to play a little game now. Oh, it's in a break, so you don't have to, this is not part of the assessment. A little game. Let me just stop the recording. Okay, and I'm sharing the screen. And what does success look like? Often success is about a series of events. So when I have a shower, I was taught when I was young to always, you turn the taps on and test the temperature of the water before you get in. And where I grew up in the country town, the problem was not that the water would be too hot. The problem was that the water would be freezing and you had to wait for the water to heat up. And we had to boil our own water and everything. So we can think about that process. Number one, we have an action. That is, we turn the tap on. Number two, part of the process is I put my hand under the water to test the temperature. Then number three, I go back and actually change the tap again, temperature, to get the right optimized process. And the optimized process for the shower is the temperature that you like when you're having a shower. So there are processes behind there are activities behind every process, behind every product that's made, behind every service that's delivered. And we tend to think about that in terms of systems thinking. That is a series of interconnected steps that result in this, that result in a service. So the strategy map is really a diagrammation of maybe a simplified version of what the organization system of processes and flows look like to make the product, to make the service. All right. So we could see systems thinking in terms of a fast food restaurant, where we can think about all of these as being activities. What would come first, second, third, and fourth? Maybe we want to hire employees. We need employees before we can have customers. Okay, so this might be later in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So customer, and sustained profitability. Obviously, that's near the end. So this might be 6, leading to shareholder value. But as a result, you're probably going to have these two leading to customer satisfaction, leading to profitability, right? That's the customer buying the service. And then you're going to have employee satisfaction linking to the customers in some way. And so we're trying to draw linkages between what would come first, second, and third. Selection and staffing may contribute here, and that may contribute to here. All right. But a systems thinking would be, well, you're really starting here. Maybe we want to think in terms of employee added value. If we can enhance the employer's way in which they add value, then they're going to be more satisfied. Or maybe it's the other way around. In one organization, this may be 2, this one may be 3. Or another organization, this one might be 3 and this one might be 2. And so then that leads to customer buying behavior. Then that leads to customer satisfaction. And then that leads to sustained profitability. So what I'm doing here very, very quickly, and like in week 12, we can revisit this. I'm drawing a system map. In other words, what comes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth in the process of creating a service, in the process of creating a product. Is that all systems thinking is? Yes, that's all it is. All right. So it's all about thinking about the steps. What goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. All right. And so then you can map that system. And so let's just fast forward that, thinking about a restaurant in more detail. There we have the employee added value at the bottom, where I actually tick that, where you select the employees, you train the employees to make sure that they fit in with what the coffee organization wants. And here we got Ya Kan Kaya Toast. Do you know where that comes from? I took this photo when I was in Singapore. Of course, this is a big brand in Singapore. I don't know. Is it in Malaysia? I don't know. I don't know if I've seen this in KL, but I'm sure you have equivalent. You have Toast, the Toast brand in Malaysia. It's pretty popular in Sunway, KL around, right? Okay. Yan Kaya. This is Singapore brand, not Hong Kong, by the way. All right. And so you may think about that coffee chain in terms of a strategy map. And again, I want you to think, all right, a simple system is, a simple system may be, we have to, if we train the staff, then that can help us to operate this high-tech Italian coffee machine. Like if we don't train the staff, then how can they operate this machine, right? And in order to operate the machine, maybe we need to have a good Italian blend to go in that machine. And then we can create a sensation and maybe get customer loyalty and therefore our revenue. Notice what I'm doing here is creating a story. What is the story of this? This is a story of making the best coffee ever. And what do we mean? Well, if I want to make the best coffee ever, this is the way I'm going to attract people to come to my coffee shop. It may not be the cheapest or the most efficient. You're going to have to wait a while. It may not be the most outstanding service, but it's going to be the best tasting coffee. Wow. All right. And an example in Hong Kong, yum yum lai ta, I lai ta, ho yum, they say in Cantonese. Oh, yum, right? You know that, some of you speak in Cantonese. Apologies, those that don't. All right. That's what I love, because the milk tea here in Hong Kong, and then I will go to a restaurant because of that milk tea. Wow. Okay. So there are reasons why customers go to a coffee shop. And so if you're creating a strategy, it might be around the best coffee. Now I want you to think about, I would ask you, remember, we're climbing this mountain now. You need to think about what would the strategy look like for if we want to create the best service possible? That is, soon as I open the door, come in, Miss So, come in. What would you like today? Please take a seat. We'll bring the coffee with you in a short while. Would you like some tissue? Would you like a magazine while you're waiting for your coffee? And so it's all about the surround. It's not just about the coffee. That's a different strategy. And so I would ask you to think about, what would the system map look like? Remember, systems thinking. What would the system map look like in this strategy map if we were focusing only on outstanding service? Well, maybe we need to think about either 1, 2, or 3. We need to start down here. What are we going to start with? Could I have a show of hands for 1? Maybe put your hands down for 1. All right, everyone put your hands down if you've put it up, show of hands. Could we have a thumbs for 2? And a show of hands for 3. What would you do? What would you do if you could only do one of the bottom? If your strategy was to create the most outstanding service for the customers, what would you do? Would it be 1, you train the staff to get a barista qualification? Remember, it's about priorities here. Number 2, develop a customer-focused culture. Number 3, train staff to order online. What would your priority be if you were to create outstanding service? What would that be? Could I have a thumbs up for 2? Hands up for 3. Which would be your priority? What would you do first? Okay, some of you got thumbs. Yeah, you may think about, well, okay, developing a customer-focused culture is going to be our priority. And how can you do that? Well, it's very, very important that, of course, maybe you're going to think about this, but a priority would be to modernize the look. The priority would be to offer a great coffee sensation. Okay. And then customer and increase sales revenue. And so again, now I'm telling a different story that is associated with creating a different strategy. Remember, you cannot be all 3 at the same time. Why? If you try and be the most efficient, the best coffee, outstanding service, what's going to happen is some student from my class is going to come next to you and create another coffee shop and just create outstanding service and take away those customers that thought you offered outstanding service. And they're not going to come back to you anymore. Why? Because the coffee shop next to you is putting all of their resources into making you feel at home. And you cannot compete. Why? Because you are spreading your resources across 3 strategies, but the coffee shop next door is focusing their strategy on one thing. And then another coffee shop comes next door and makes the most efficient coffee. And suddenly you lose customers that want the most efficient coffee. Like they come in and they want the coffee now. They want the coffee now. Pronto. Here's my money. Octopus payment, cashless payment, down. Give me my coffee. I got to go to work. In and out. So you have a fast serving coffee chain next to you. Suddenly you lose all the customers to them. Suddenly now you've just got the best coffee left. What's going to happen? Another operator will set up. They'll make the best coffee because they're only focusing on the best coffee. And now suddenly you've got no customers. Why? Because you're trying to be everything to everyone. And that's why when we trying to climb that mountain, you need to think and think and think more about, okay, what is the real strategy of this company? And what is the big story that tells the story of the strategy that's going to maximize the value to the customer this year? Not for the next 5 years or 10 years. Maybe it's best coffee this year. Maybe we change it to best customer service next year. Okay, maybe we change it to most efficient the year after that. Why? Because markets change, because the competition changes. So that's my first introduction to you of what do we mean by a strategy map? It's about laying out all the different areas that help you to make a product. Wow. Okay. All right. So we can go to measurement, but what I'm going to do now, I promised you I'll show you what we mean. We're going to just go take a little excursion. I'm going to show you another factory. So let me find it. Remember, we've got short time now, and it's very, very important that we make the most of it. Remember, back to the assignment. What I'm going to do is stop share and change the screen. We're going to share the screen now. Verification and factory audit. Now, your assignment is going to be on these two companies. All right, so we're just doing an excursion. What have we done so far? I've introduced you briefly to, okay, what you have to do for page 1. Then page 2. Page 1, business comparison. Page 2 is the customer preference map. Page 3, the strategy map. Now, I've given you some basics on that. Remember, this is a mountain, and it's probably the hardest part. It's, in some ways, it's a creative element of your assignment. Like if it was all black and white, all of you would do the same assignment and then just give full marks to everyone. But we have to have some element of creativity. All right, just like that coffee shop example. I'm sure many of you could think of other elements to put in that strategy map to focus on. Okay, so it's not about having everything perfect. I want you to, when I'm going to show you now, briefly introduce you to the videos that you have access to do the assignment. Because the assignment is on the two factories I am about to show you. Okay, so I'm not going to show you everything, just going to give you a sneak preview of the two factories. So these are audits. These are audits that I actually did for a real client, USA client contacted me in Hong Kong. I need to order some picture frames. I've got two factories I want to visit. I want you to tell me which factories I should buy from. Wow. So this is real. Neil, did you make this up? No, this is real. Okay, this is the real consulting assignment I did. So let's just go through. I just want to go to the factory. Excuse it, it's not part of a bigger slide. Okay, so just bear with me. Remember, I'm doing a factory audit here. Part of the assignment materials that you have access to is actually the output of the factory audit. So it's an audit report of about 20 pages of 10 pages each of each factory. In that, the audit report talks about the following, the AQL, that's the quality limit. I talk about how good each factory is on different benchmarks. So you get an idea of which factory has a better quality processes, which one has worse quality processes. Wow. Okay. And then I'll talk about the product in the audit report. All right. So what I want to show you now is the following. You have been tasked in your assignment to look at the audits of 2 factories. They are different. And in page 1 of your assignment, you've got to do a business comparison. So that information can come from some of the audit report, but you can go online to get more information. What is the product we're talking about? We're talking about the following product. What do you see in front of you? It's a digital photo frame. Yes. Okay. So that's what you put up on your wall and show with family memories, etc. And it just rotates through that. You don't use that for work. It's just to hold your digital photos. Okay. And people do buy them today. Yes, people are buying them overseas, like tens of thousands of these are being sold every week in the world. So this is business. This is big business. And if we go to Amazon or to Lazada, here's the Lazada, then you'll see these digital photo frames. So the customer we're talking about now is the customer is the buyer. The customer is the person, just like any one of you could be. You want to set up a Lazada shop front, and you could do that today. I'm not going to teach you how to do that, but if you want to, contact me. You could set up a Lazada shop frame today, and then to sell digital photo frames, you could contact the factories in this assignment and then order 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 frames from them and then sell them in your Lazada shop. Okay, you could actually do that. Wow. So this assignment is as real as it gets. So I want you to think, if you were the Lazada shopkeeper, that means you own the Lazada website and you're one of these here, hoping customers will come to you, you're going to put a product up for sale. You'll want to know that you could sell it for a certain price. You'll want to know that you can sell it for a certain quality. Wow. Wow. All right. So when you go in to, now this is 2 smartwatch manufacturers, so we don't want to look at that, but it's possible. Let me show you. Here we are, the digital photo frames. Okay. When you go into a factory or the business case, this is information on each factory that you go to the websites and get this information. Remember, for page 1. All right. And there's the website comparison for the second one. Okay. So lots of information online for these 2 factories for you to do your business comparison. Okay. All right. So what's next? Well, let's go and visit the factories. Remember, you have access to these videos, and these are the 2 factories you will be doing your report on. All right. And so we go into, there's factory A, there's factory B, and I'm just going to show you snippets, but you have access to these videos through Google Drive. That means you can view them online. And if you use a Snagit screen capture, you could actually capture the video online and use it in your presentation. So notice when we go and do the factory audit, we're actually looking at the operations. There's all the design teams of each company. And then we go into the other parts of the conditions of assembly of both companies, and you start to see differences of the companies. Now we're actually going into the factory area. Notice in the bottom one, I went through a dust screen room. What does that mean? It's a screens out all the dust of my suit that I carry in from the outside environment. And at the bottom, notice they're making, what are they making? Smartphones. Yes, I did promise you that you will get to see smartphones being made. Now, is that the picture frame for your assignment? No, but this factory also makes picture frames. Now, the one at the top, of course, they're making many, many different products, both factories. And so some of the videos will show either the production of the picture frames. You'll have to look at the videos in more detail. And some of them will just show the packaging of the picture frames. But at least you get to see the different conditions of assembly. Maybe the workers at the bottom are better trained than workers at the top. I don't know. You have to watch the videos to get an impression. Remember, the balanced scorecard starts with the preparation of your workers in the factory, remember? What you're seeing now is part of the internal processes of making a product. Remember, I could have gone into Starbucks and a local coffee shop and filmed the experiences of each coffee shop, and we could do the same, and you come up with a strategy map like I showed you earlier. Wow. But O'Connor, this is not an operations unit. Why are you asking us to learn about factories? You're right. This is a unit where I want you to learn from real world clients of an audit firm, real world clients of a Big Four. I don't want you, when you graduate from an accounting major, not knowing what a factory looks like, not knowing or having some sense of what the client's operations may look like when you go out on an audit assignment, when you're asked to do a consulting assignment. Maybe you get a job with McKinsey, BCG, or Accenture. You go on a consulting assignment to improve the operations of a customer. Just because you haven't done a unit in operations management doesn't mean you cannot be exposed. So I want you to see this as a positive thing, all right? I'm showing you real world stuff here. Look, there's our picture frame at the top. Wow, there's actual operations. Of course, it's showing the smartphone manufacturer at the bottom. Notice the conditions of assembly, the one at the bottom, they are separating. Separation is a very important thing, where when you're actually making electronics products, that you have separation. The product doesn't touch another product, or the components doesn't touch another component. Why? Because you can get problems with migration of the parts of the electronic componentry, which can affect the operation of the product in the end when it's produced. Do you need to talk about that in your assignment? No, but I just want to show you these different challenges that you have when you're comparing two factories. All right, let's have a look at another part of the factory operations. Well, here are the two factories again. You'll see the two videos. This is an important part of the operations where even after the product has been made, and the smartphones again, I promised you that making smartphones, this is where they are. This is called a burn-in room. What do you mean? Well, they will actually connect the products up and they'll charge them up for 4 hours or 8 hours, like all of them. Okay, so the product you get actually is kind of pre-charged when you buy a smartphone or when you buy a picture frame. And notice they have full documentation of this process. So this is kind of like the quality control. Wow. Okay, so this is maybe for some of you, this is the first time you've seen stuff like this, but this is really, really important. There are buyers all around the world, including a lot of buyers having products on Lazada that are selling products that are poor quality. not because they are trying to swindle you or to scam you. It's because they don't know what to look for in choosing the right factory to source from. Ah, wow. And so for many of you, you might be interested in selling products online, e-commerce and things like that. Fine. But it's something around the world that I impress upon buyers. Get to know a little bit about what a factory should be doing. And I think this is really important. If we're teaching you balanced scorecard, strategy map, if a factory has a strategy of making good quality, then some of these processes need to be done very well. So all right, so here's some other, these are all videos you will have access to. You can watch them from end to end. The videos go, I think there's over an hour of videos for both factories. That's part of the assignment. Watch the videos, get to know them, listen to the conversation I'm having with the people as we go through the factories. Remember, there you are, I'm going through the clean room here, blowing out all of the dust. But in the top factory, they never did that. And this is part of the IC testing that goes in part of the picture frame. Now, remember, you don't have to watch all of the processes of the making of the picture frame, but I want you to get a sense of what each factory is focusing on. Okay. And then we can see the final product. And then I talk about the different product. Obviously, the customer, if the buyer come and visit the factory, which one do you think would have a better customer experience when they're looking at the range of picture frames to buy? Which one would you feel much more welcoming to go into? You see what I mean? There are many different dimensions in which a factory can impress upon the customer, buy the product from me. Like, this is the same product, okay? All right, buy the picture frame from me, all right? So you can see that in each of these frames, there are differences. And this is your challenge to watch and learn from when you're going through the assignment. And this is real world. These two factories still exist today. You can actually contact these factories today. You could actually email them. You can message them and ask them about picture frames. You can ask them for a quote. You can do a request for quotation to find out how much would it cost to buy 2,000 picture frames today. Like back then, I can tell you that the factory at the top was, okay, I want you to think about how much would you pay from the picture frame between $10 US and $30 US. That's the range. I want you to put into the chat room now. Remember, we want to finish up where we are, page 3, right? How much would you pay for each one? Can you, in the chat room, put in a range for, so for example, if I type in, for the top one, I would say, let me guess, maybe 15, and maybe the second one, maybe 25. Or maybe, remember, you can't put in one because you don't know which one it is. Or maybe you think, the one at the top is selling for 23 and the second one is selling for 28. Or maybe the one at the bottom, because they can make it a higher quantity, maybe they sold it cheaper. Maybe you need to find that out. Wow. Okay. Back then, like, part of your page 1 will be to find out how much does it cost them to supply you, say, minimum order quantity of picture frames of 2,000 units. How much would that cost you to order? And you can contact them and ask them, okay? And remember, you go on to Lazada, that is the final price. but the factory will give you a price that may be half that or 1/3 that. All right. Back in 2016, when I did this audit, the top factory was quoting me, I think I've got it here. Let me just check. The top one, 17 to 20 US dollars, depending on how many you order. The top one was quoting 23 to 26, depending on how many you order. That's the bottom one. All right. So immediately you start to think, I can see O'Connor, the customer preference map is starting to come together now. All right. But look, like I said, there are some parts of that report that are going to be easier for you to do, but the strategy map is going to be a little bit more difficult and require a little bit more creativity for you to think through, watch the videos, get an appreciation for what is factory A doing, what is factory B doing to win at their strategy. Okay. So finally, I'm going to take you back to, and this is what exactly happened with the client, that on the first order, he paid 23 US dollars for the factory at the bottom. And then 2 orders later, they put it up to 28 US dollars. And the client came back to me, Neil, this is out of my expectation. Remember customer preference map? Remember, suddenly it's out of the customer's expectation. Remember what I told you, that coffee shop comes next door, or you're trying to offer, the cheapest coffee and the best coffee and best service, and suddenly you put your prices up. Suddenly what happens? You lose customers to the next door competitor. And it's exactly what happened to me. And he said, what am I going to do now? And then I told the client, remember, he paid me to do the factory audit. I recommended him the bottom one. He went with the bottom one, but then suddenly the price went up too much. I said, go back to the first factory now. It's much cheaper, but now ask that first factory, do extra audit checks on the product to make sure that the quality is up to your standard. Wow. Neil, this is getting complicated. This is beyond the assignment. Yeah, but I just want to tell you the big story to show you that this is a real case that you will be working with. Okay. And like there's another audit I did with Bluetooth wireless, and I went into 2 factories and we saw all that. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in week 7. Wow. O'Connor, this is a little bit more than I expected, 8 o'clock, second week on a Tuesday morning. Sorry, I apologize. But I want you to get excited about this assessment rather than thinking, this mountain is too high to climb. I think get into the videos, get to know the factories, spend time over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, just watching the videos, just taking it in and thinking, if I'm a buyer for Lazada, yes, this factory is cheaper. But I've got to worry about quality. Okay, what's the factory thinking in order to impress upon me to get me to buy from that factory? Okay. What about the other factory? You're with me here. Okay. Now, let's just, I just want to stop share screen and we're going to go. Can I have a thumbs up? How many of you are excited about this? Do we have a thumbs up? Are you excited? Is anyone excited? One person. Please, can I have 2 people excited, please? I worked really hard on setting up this assignment. We got 3, 4. Thank you. Okay. I thought if I only got a few excited, then maybe I'll just give you a case study on paper and you can do a case study that's not really real and is out of date. But this is real. This is real as it gets. So I think that's what is exciting, something you can talk about in your job interview in terms of what you're learning in this unit. I want to share screen now. I'm going to go back to finalizing what we're covering today. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good question. Daisy, you're really, really good. I want everyone to pay attention to what I'm going to say now. All right. Are you ready? For page 1, you do 2 factories. For page 2, the customer preference map, you do 2 factories. For page 3, 4, and 5, you choose one factory or the other. You don't have to do both factories. Okay. Page 1, page 2, 2 factories. Page 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 3, 4, and 5, you do one factory. You get to choose. You do the bottom one or the top one. Both of them. Like, there's no preference I have. Just because I like the bottom one and my customer bought from the bottom one doesn't mean you cannot do a good report on the top one. And maybe the top one is easier to do because you've got to think a little bit more about how it can improve its processes to sustain its strategy. Whereas the bottom one seems a little bit too perfect, you know what I mean? So there are different reasons that you may be attracted to one or another. Okay, Kim, very, very good. Okay, so let me write page 1, yep, 2 factories. Page 2, 2 factories. Okay, excellent. All right. Okay, so the final part, and then, as I said, the strategy map is a challenge, but I really want you really got to get to know the factory that you choose. Okay, internet, watch the videos. Okay, look at the audit report, get to know the factory to get a feel for, okay, what does the factory have to do for its workers at the bottom level, and what key processes, general processes. You don't want to, like, a factory would have dozens and dozens of processes, but you put it in that general grouping. What key processes should they be focusing on, and then leading to the customer, and then your financial. Okay. Okay. And then page 3, 4, and 5, one factory you choose. Okay, page 3, 4, 5, you choose one factory. Okay. All right. What do we mean by measurement? Well, you all know financial performance measures. You're studying financial accounting. You know that it's about profit and loss. It's about balance sheet. It's about sales. It's about revenue. It's about costs. You're learning all about costs in week 1, week 2, 3, 4, 5. You're learning all about costs. That is, you're assigning costs to labor, materials, overhead. So the financial is going to be an easy part. Okay. What it may be a little bit more difficult is to think about the non-financial. Okay. So at the bottom level, we need to hire the right people. We need to do training. So then you need to think about, okay, what measures should we be using to show that we are doing enough training, to show that our workers have enough skills, to show that the workers are satisfied. That is, maybe we're measuring turnover. Maybe we're measuring how many training hours. Maybe we're measuring how we hire the workers. Then we go to the next level. In the internal process, we're thinking about measurement in terms of what do we need to measure to get a sense that our processes are working. You saw that in some of the videos. You saw that they were measuring the QC. You saw that they're measuring how many defects are being found on the assembly line. When it gets to the end of the assembly line, they will measure the defects. You saw they were measuring when they were burning in the product, like the smartphone. That's what we mean by non-financial measures. Wow. And then you can think about measures at the customer level. That is maybe to attract customers that have a shop on Lazada, maybe that top company, the one that the customer didn't buy from, that offers it for a lower price, maybe that company needs to give a promise that they can deliver in a certain lead time. Why is that important? Because if I'm selling on Lazada, as soon as I put the product up on Lazada, suddenly I get 10 orders overnight. I need to know that I can deliver those orders to the customers on time. So I need to know that the factory can give me that lead time. Wow. Neil, this feels like a higher mountain than the strategy map. Let me assure you, watch the videos once you get to know more about the whole processes and what customers care about. If they are selling something on Amazon or on Lazada, you'll start to get a better appreciation of what the factory has to do. Okay, so I want to leave some element of a little bit of uncertainty, all right? And that uncertainty, I don't want you to mix that up with being confused, all right? All right? Please, I don't want to create confusion. I deliberately want to make you feel that, okay, there's some areas are very black and white. I can do that very quickly. I could actually do it tonight. Or maybe I'll do page 1 and page 2 tonight, in one day, fine. But page 3 and page 4 will take a little bit more effort on you, and there's a little bit more uncertainty with that. Okay, so please, I don't want you to feel, O'Connor's confusing us. No, I'm deliberately creating some uncertainty. And you can think about how measurements go. Remember I showed you this earlier systems map? Then measurement may look like, let me just end slideshow, discard. I want to wrap up here because we want to let you go. Okay, so measurement may look like, for selection staffing, we need to do this, employee satisfaction, so forth, employee added value. You can see these are examples of measure. Remember, these are examples for coffee shop. Okay, so just be careful. Initially, you maybe think, I'll just copy what's here. Fine, you can do that, but I think you need to go one step further and ask yourself, if I say education, well, what does that mean for the factory? If I say work experience, well, what does that mean for the factory? So you need to be a little bit more specific. Okay. All right. So let me just close up with the following. Right. What I've taken you through is the 5-6 pages, or the critical parts that you need to think about for your assignment. Page 1, business comparison. You can contact both companies, get a request for quotation. That is, find out how much are they selling for a 2,000 unit order. You can do that, okay, in a group. Don't do it individually. I don't want 120 people contacting the factories. It's probably better if only 15 groups are contacting, if you know what I mean. Okay, so wait until you're in a group before you do these things. All right, so that's page 1. Page 2, customer preference map. I think you know by now, and you get a sense of where those two factories are at. You need to just think about what are the attributes I am going to compare those two factories on. Think about it from the point of view of a Lazada e-commerce seller. If you're selling on Lazada, you're selling on Amazon, what are you going to look for one factory versus another? And there's different attributes from there. Then I talked about systems thinking, and that's the creativity part of it, because now you're going to map what's going on in the factory in a general sense, not specific. Remember, factories have scores, 20, 30, 40 different steps, processes, right? I don't want 40 bubbles in your strategy map, right? You want to focus on 3, 4, 5 key areas that if the factory does well, then that will lead to an outcome for the customer and so forth. And then measurement, I gave you a little hint at what we mean by non-financial measures, and that will come much more, that will be easier. That page 4 will be 10 times easier when you have more clarity on what elements of that strategy map you have put together. Well, and then you got to do a report, right? Part of the page 5 is telling the story. What do we mean by the story? The story is, well, if the factory does this, then that will lead to this, that will lead to this, that will lead to that. Like the story of the coffee shop, the story, that's what we mean by the story. And you've got to tell that this is what they should be focusing on measuring, because they want to get this collection of processes right. And then that will lead to better outcomes in terms of less defect, and therefore we have less wastage, and then we can save money in that way, and then it enables us to sell the product for a lower price. You with me? See, that's the story that you need to think about for page 5. Wow. And then reflection, page 6. All right, so that finishes today. Really, there's more information that I've given you in the past in terms of examples of what prior students have done. It's really important to me that, and there's some videos of prior students I could show you, but I want to say that in the past, when we creatively produced this, in the past, the students had to go and interview a shop, a business in Malaysia. We can't do it now, but this was in 2019. They had to go and do that, meet, and they had to knock on doors 10 times, 15 times before someone will say, okay, you can do the project on us. This time it's different, but we've got these videos. You need to do a little bit more work on page 1 and page 1, contacting the companies, finding out how much does it cost, finding out lead times, just getting updated information so you can do your page 1. That's kind of the equivalent, but everything else I've given you the information on. There's audit reports, there's videos, there's everything. So with that, it's time up. I really hope we've had 2 hours, 2 great hours this morning, and this is the outcome I want for you. Like, I want you to feel as though that you have done something very special, that the big 4, the big accounting firms, the big consulting firms would really appreciate you. This is a real world assignment, and if you put everything into this and get excited about this, the benefits to you will be greater than the grade that you get in this unit. The benefits will be greater because you can talk about it in your job interview. It will help you. It will help shape how you view yourself as a professional. And that is so critical when you're applying for jobs and with the big 4, with consulting firms. So just so excited to be part of the team to teach you. I'll see you back in week 6, week 7, week 8. I would like to, we could set up a Google, what do they call it? It's not a WhatsApp, it's a HubSpot, Google meetups. I forget what they call it. and we could send information to you. So Hangouts, Google Hangout group, officially under Monash, that you can join, and then you could ask questions about the assignment. And I think that will be much more efficient than you sending emails and then I'm replying to individual emails. It's better you ask questions, and then everyone in the class can learn together. I think that's the only thing I ask. And then it's much easier for you to ask little questions, get little detail here, there, and happy to help in that way. And I think if you agree, then we can set up a Google Hangout so we can all be in it together. Put thumbs up for that. What do you think? Okay, we've got 1 thumb, 2, 3. Excellent. I'm great with that. Okay, finally, in the chat room, very, very important. Remember, this is totally different from what you're learning in the first 5-6 weeks. Not an accounting assignment. It's very much a strategy assignment, but it has an accounting as a final outcome, of course, with the financial. I really want to know, in the chat room, how was your experience today? Can you write it in the chat room? Have I helped you understand the assignment? From a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give me in terms of helping you in the assignment today? Okay, with the limited time we have and showing you all the different parts that you need to look for. How are you at? And in the chat room, if you want to say if there's, which one area do you think that excites you the most about this assignment? Can you just spend time to write into the chat room now, please? Thank you. Thank you. I think you're very nice. You've 10. I think there's always room for improvement. So I was always happy for 9 out of 10, but thank you. Right, so we will set up a Hangout. I will, I think what I have to do. I'll work with Dr. Pushpa so we get all your emails on the invite. And so an invite will be sent to you and then you join the Hangout. Okay, and then we can just use that just for this assignment. All right, it's just focus on this assignment to make sure that this is as real as it gets. Okay, so I wish you a wonderful week, a great day. So excited to be part of this team. Dr. Pushpa, she has amazing energy, and do give her a lot of support, especially in the lectures. Show your video, say thank you to her at the end of the, maybe show your video and just say thank you in voice, just surprise her. All right, it's just amazing what you can do for your instructor if you do little things like that. I love myself too much, so you don't need to do that for me, so it's okay. All right, I'm happy to help you. I'm going to stop the recording now.